The English academic, now a man who's been around for a long time, Frank Furedi, has written a book about what's gone wrong in our universities. He says that we've made a terrible mistake. We've weaponised feelings. So now you're seeing courses and their contents written to avoid raising issues that might be contentious, that might offend people, and we're backing it up in academia with a whole lot of things that are actually really very dangerous, from anti-microaggression policies through to the requirement for academics to provide trigger warnings if something worrying might be said that might offend somebody, even if it's true, through to safe places where people can go and find cuddly toys and a counsellor and maybe a friendly dog, through to platform denying.
And we just need to face the fact that the truth sometimes hurts, and we can't run away from the truth just because the facts might be uncomfortable. If I've committed a crime, the facts will be paraded in court. They should be paraded in court, and if that hurts my feelings, well, that's just something that has to happen.
Well, these are interesting things to ponder, because he would argue that, in fact, Australia's universities are particularly bad at this. We've picked up some of the easiest and laziest models out of the US, where we're seeing some universities almost eat themselves out from within, where left-wing academics are being denied a platform because they haven't fallen in line with the latest fashion and what have you. In fact, the IPA, having a look at Australian universities, found that only one of our 42 universities has no restrictions on free speech over and above the laws of the land.
It is extraordinary. I spent some wonderful formative years at university.
I remember.
In Sydney, as we both did, and subsequently in England. And
that I don't remember.
I've got to say that I have nothing but affection and nostalgia even for my days at university, and the debates in those days were very robust and nothing was off limits. And yes, you got a very vigorous response often, particularly if you're putting forward a conservative position. But in those days, at least, there was no official attempt at censorship. Certainly your opponents would try to shout you down, but I guess that's the nature of student assemblies. They're pretty rowdy, but the idea that the university authorities should say that some things are off limits, I think that's just wrong. The whole point of a university is to question everything, to ask and re-ask the big questions over and over again, constantly trying to get better answers through a dialectical process. I mean, that's the way it has to work if our universities are to do their job and to serve the purpose which has made them over the centuries such engines of progress.
What I see is a serious problem that's now really confronting us, of the closing of the minds of so many of our young people in universities. And I have 4 young people, I love them to bits, so it's not, I'm not being down on young people at all. I don't want to do that. It has more to do, frankly, with the environment we've now created in our universities right across the West, with left-of-centre people everywhere, warning of the dangers. You've got Jonathan Haidt actually tracking the remarkable march of the academics, of academia to the left. And he's observing himself the fact that young people have a prescribed set of views. They subscribe often to the whole set of so-called liberal in that country. We might call them progressive or leftist views. You have to believe in them all to be a full card-carrying member. And he observed that often what happens when those views are challenged is that people can't defend them because they've never heard the other view, they've never tried to understand it. And he quotes John Stuart Mill.
They just stop the conversation or they walk away.
Yeah. Now, given the huge numbers of young people go to university and if you like, the most constrained courses of all in terms of you must subscribe to this set of ideologies tend to be the people who go into education, the media, humanities, law. How are we going to break the stifling of the very debate that you and I would say is critical to us extracting best policy at a time when, frankly, we need best policy on a whole range of fronts. Any ideas? How do we start to challenge that?
I think all of us, John, have grappled with this question of how do we produce better schools with better teaching so that we have stronger and more accomplished citizens. I think we've all wrestled with that, and as federal politicians, part of the difficulty is that it's state governments that run state schools, and historically it's been state governments that set the curricula, and the curricula have been rather contaminated by these sorts of thoughts as well. I mean, how, for instance, do you have feminist algebra, for instance, or Indigenous science? I mean, yes, there are women who've contributed to maths, and there are Indigenous people who've contributed to our understanding of how to cope in a harsh environment. But how do you have these cultural concepts permeate the hard sciences is a mystery to me. But anyway, so how do we fix it? Well, I think that what everyone should get is a grounding in the classics of the Western canon, starting with the New Testament, then going with Shakespeare and Dickens and the best of the modern authors. I think they need to have a grounding in history, starting with the ancient civilizations, going through the Greeks and the Romans, the development of Britain, the rise of the modern world. That's what people need. They need to know about the best that has been thought and said and done over the centuries. And if they know about that, then they will have a foundation upon which to try to be the best they can be today and into the future. Now, for this to happen properly, we need to have more of our best and brightest going into teaching. And sadly, for quite some time now, teaching has often been seen as an also-rans profession. You don't earn much money, you don't get much recognition, and under those circumstances, it's hardly surprising that it's not something that the best and brightest often choose to do. Now, there are many good teachers despite all that, but if I could wave a magic wand and change things in our country, it would be a stronger presence of the Western canon in our schools, and it would be more of our best and brightest teaching there.